Hey, Michael with XForcePC. Wanted to go over our new case that we're using with our Platinum system and kind of just reshoot the Platinum overview. So we're now using Intel 8th generation processors, and those 8th generation processors start with the number 8. So it's like the 8600K, 8700K, anything that's 8th generation will start with the number 8. And most of Intel's, if not all, it remains to be seen what chips they're going to release. But currently, all of their i5s and i7s with the 8 designation are 6-core processors. So that's a step up. I think that's in a response to AMD's Ryzen. Is now they've added 2 more cores, and so we have a 6-core processor. Currently, X-Plane, most of my customers fly X-Plane. X-Plane doesn't really care that you went from 4 to 6 cores. Maybe it will someday. But in general, it wants the fastest clock speed you can possibly get, and these also have the fastest clock speeds out there. Our i7 we're running comfortably at 4.8, and we're running the i5 at 4.5. If you opt for the i7, the 8700K, again at 4.8, we will couple that with a water cooler. Since we've added 2 more cores, that produces a little more heat, and now with the i7 we find it to be necessary to run a water cooler just to keep things reasonably cool. When you've got, and we test it in a worst case scenario where we max out all 6 cores at 100% for 2 straight hours and make sure that the temperatures stay down where they need to stay. And so we base our cooling solution on a worst case scenario. When you're flying X-Plane, playing other games, doing most other work, very rarely are you going to max out all 6 cores. The only time that's going to happen is if you're doing video editing or 3D rendering, things like that can leverage all 6 cores at the same time. So let's start in the front. We've got just sort of a flat matte finish here. And you'll notice there's no optical bay for an optical drive. And so the reason for that is most modern cases simply don't come with that. They're being phased out, kind of like floppy drives about 10 years ago. But we do offer a USB one if you just have some old software you need to load. But keep in mind, just about everything nowadays can be downloaded. TurboTax, Quicken, QuickBooks. Almost every game can be downloaded, so you may find that there's really no need for one, but we do offer an option for one, and it's not expensive. So behind the front panel we have a filter, and so periodically you'll want to clean that filter, and it kind of takes a little bit of a tug to get that front panel off, and that might have been kind of noisy. But behind the front panel we'll find a fan here, a filter here, and it's held on with magnets. So it's real easy to remove, and then you can clean it. It's a washable filter. These are plastic. It's like a real fine screen, like a window screen sort of, but with the openings a little bit smaller. So it catches the majority of the dust. Now, in this particular area in the front of the case, you may or may not find anything. This may just be an opening right here. Or in this case, this customer opted for a little higher end graphics card, so we added an extra fan here in the front. If you opt for the i7, you'll actually find a radiator here which takes up this entire space. It's a dual fan water cooler radiator, and so that is what will be there. But regardless, all the air for the computer comes in the front of the case, and you may say, how does it get through that front if it's flat and there's no openings? Well, actually at the top and the bottom, so this is the front panel, you can see here there's at the top of the bottom and the bottom there's going to be an opening where air can get in, and so that's how the air gets in. It can come in underneath, or if that's blocked off by something, it can easily get in through the top. So periodically, you want to clean that filter. It's pretty easy to do. You just, when you're done cleaning it, you just put it back in, let the magnets do the job, and then you take and you snap the front back on, which again, that might have been kind of loud, but it's not a big deal. Now here on the top, we have a power button, and we have 2, I believe, USB 3.0s. We do, yes. And we have, of course, a headphone and a microphone jack. right here on the top. Now I'm going to move around to the side, and again, I mentioned earlier, this is the system I built for a customer. It's actually going to go out maybe today. This is based on the i5, so it's got the air cooler here, not the water cooler. And it does have some LED lighting. I don't really market that or say, oh wow, LED lighting, because I just, it doesn't really do anything other than just make lights. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's here. There is some software you can download from Gigabyte's website to customize it, make it different colors, maybe even disable it. I don't even load that software because I just don't want to load extra software that is just kind of, in my opinion, unnecessary. Now, one thing I'll mention about our cooling solution here that we do differently than a lot of the competitors will do is all of our fans are connected to the motherboard. Since we're using a high-end motherboard, the motherboard has lots of fan connections. And so all the fans that we use are being managed in an intelligent way. If it's the water cooler, then Corsair provides some water cooling software to customize the pump speed and the fan speed. And if it's just cooling fans, then we have those connected to the motherboard. The motherboard has sensors all over it which tell it the temperatures of various parts of the motherboard, the processor, the SSD, the chipset, and that information is used to speed up and slow down the fans, and that goes back to under-ventilating or over-ventilating. So if things get hot inside, the fans speed up. If things cool down, the fans slow down. That helps keep us from over-ventilating or under-ventilating, and it keeps the noise level down. In a more typical system, the fans are plugged directly into a power supply connector, and they just run at 100% speed all the time. And so you're more than likely going to end up with a little bit noisy machine that way, and you're probably going to be over-ventilating and be picking up some dust, a good bit of dust. Just to talk a little bit more about what we see here, the power supply is behind this sort of shroud, and what that does is it isolates the power supply's air. So the power supply draws air straight in through the bottom and goes straight out the back. And the reason that's a good thing is it doesn't have to draw in hot air from inside the case, and it's not expelling hot air into the case. The other thing is we have a filter that goes in the bottom, and I'm not going to try to reinsert this now, but it goes right in under here, and the air that passes into the power supply actually goes through this filter, so that gets filtered as well. So do know if you buy one of these, this is under here, and you're going to want to clean that out periodically, otherwise it'll become obstructed. So that's another nice design perk is the isolated power supply and the fact that that air is filtered. Point out a couple of things here. Of course, this is the graphics card. We've got really good cable management. You're not seeing a whole lot of cabling. We do have all the cases will come with a fan here and a fan in the top. So when the processor is being cooled, the air is being blown this direction through this cooler, which has a lot of fins on it. You can hear the fins. And that blows straight into this fan, which goes out the back. And then we have a fan in the top blowing out the top. So any air that just kind of rises, hot air that rises, gets picked up by this fan and expelled straight out of the top. So it's a pretty good thermal design. Again, these two fans will always be here, the one in the top and the one in the back. And then what you're getting in the front will sort of vary depending on what options you pick. Video card, processor, and so forth. So I'm going to pull the plug on this thing, and we're going to move around back. And just to kind of give you a quick overview, these are all the ports that come with the motherboard. You'll see a couple of video ports here. We actually don't use those because we want to use the graphics card, which is right here. Typically, the graphics cards come with 3 display ports, which are these, 1, 2, 3, 1 HDMI and a DVI, but in some cases the DVI is omitted, especially on the higher end cards, because they want to use this whole area for ventilation. But regardless, you'll have at least 4 graphic outputs, and that is how many monitors are also supported. You'll have multiple USBs. The black USBs are USB 2.0. The blues are 3.0 and the reds are 3.1. And then you have a USB Type-C connector, which is right here, and that's coming on a lot of your cell phones nowadays. The new flagship Android phones all have it. And that allows power to be transmitted in both directions. You could charge your phone, or if you had a laptop with this, you might even be able to power your laptop off of your phone and vice versa. And it allows for USB 3.1 speeds of transmission, so that is always a good thing. 8-channel audio, I don't know if I mentioned that already, gigabit Ethernet. We have the power supply down here, kind of standard stuff there. And in some cases, we'll add a couple of more USB 2.0 ports down here if we feel like you don't have enough of them up here. Some boards aren't even coming with any USB 2.0s on the motherboard, and so you may find that we've added you a couple down here. And these actually are white. I don't know why they decided to use white, but USB 2.0, white or black are the colors you'll find for that. So that's pretty much the overview of the Platinum system with the updated case and some of the changes involved with that. If you have any questions, you can email me at xforcepcstore@gmail.com. Again, that's xforcepcstore@gmail.com.